In today's video, we'll go over 3 wild theories about Tears of the Kingdom that might actually be true. Tears of the Kingdom is a fantastic game, and with a game and story as big as this, I can't help but wonder about the lore of this game. There are many references to old characters and previous entries, and a lot of detail goes into the development that I couldn't help but think outside the box on some of the plot points of this story. As always, a quick spoiler warning for those who haven't beaten the game, since we'll be talking about some plot points of the story. So, without wasting anyone's time, let's dive right in. Prediction number 1. The ancestors are still alive.
Indeed, I am your ancestor from a time long past.
In Tears of the Kingdom, when obtaining one of the secret stones from the temple, Link and the new sage are transported to an area to talk with the ancestor of the sage. Each of the 4 sages will have this conversation with their ancestor to discuss the imprisoning war. We know that the 4 main ancestors didn't die during the imprisoning war, and since the war was so long ago, the ancestors should have naturally passed by the present day. However, there is one key indicator that the ancestors may actually still be alive, and that is during the conversation with the ancestor, they look alive. Let me explain. In both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, when a character is dead, they have this blue glow to indicate that they are now a spirit. We see this with the 4 champions in King Rome in Breath of the Wild, as well as Rauru in Tears of the Kingdom. So why do the ancestors not have this blue glow if they should be dead by now? The cutscene begins after touching the secret stone, which also happens at the beginning of the game when Link touches Zelda's secret stone. He's transported to a very similar place to obtain Zelda's recall ability, and we're coming up on our first spoiler, so if you haven't clicked off yet, now would be the time to do so. But Zelda is still alive. As a dragon, of course. My original thought was maybe the ancestors were also dragons. The elements of the dragons and the races line up with 3 of the 4 ancestors, we just don't have a dragon to line up with the Rito. There's always a chance a sky dragon appears later, maybe even as DLC to explain the absence of a 4th dragon, but another reason why the ancestors are probably not the dragons is because, as Minoru says, you lose yourself. You lose your mind and your body, which is why it's a forbidden act. In the cutscene obtaining recall, Zelda isn't opening her eyes, she's not talking. Her body is almost moving on its own accord to give Link recall before disappearing. We can see that she has lost herself and who she once was, whereas the ancestors interact with Link and the sages. You could argue that this area looks like the afterlife, but then again, Zelda appears to be in a similar area. Plus, each area has the symbol of their secret stone in the background, so maybe the ancestors are trapped inside the stones. Maybe this is a sacred realm where they aren't truly dead, but also not part of the world anymore. One major flaw with this theory that I can't quite work around is Minoru. When you put her construct together, we see her blue spirit fly into the secret stone. She has this blue aura around her, like others who have passed, but when she transports Link to the realm, she does not have that blue glow. Does this count as her potentially still being alive? It's a little far-fetched to me. She's likely dead, but she's also the spirit sage, so maybe that's a cop-out for this theory. But let me pass this off to you. What are your thoughts? Can you think of a reason to support this theory, given the hole in the theory because of Minoru? Let me know in the comment section down below. Theory number 2. Din, Nehru, and Furore are the 3 dragons. Every Zelda fan has heard the creation story of the land of Hyrule. Do you want to hear it again? Ocarina of Time explains it well, that before spirits and life existed, 3 goddesses descended upon Hyrule. These goddesses are Din, the goddess of power, Nehru, the goddess of wisdom, and Furore, the goddess of courage. The names of the 3 elemental dragons from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are Dinral, Naydra, and Farouche, which Nintendo clearly used the beginning of each of the 3 goddesses' names to name the dragons. The color schemes also match as well, with Din and Dinral getting red, Nehru and Naydra getting blue, and Furore and Farouche getting green. Continuing with the creation story, the 3 goddesses created the land, life, and spirit of the law of the world. Once completed, they departed back to the heavens and left behind the Triforce. Now let's cut to when Ganondorf meets Rauru in Tears of the Kingdom.
When your Zonai ancestors first descended upon these lands long, long ago, they must have seemed to be gods.
Ganondorf uses the words descended and gods. My theory is that Din, Nehru, and Furore came back to Hyrule, maybe even as Zonai. We know that gods and goddesses can give up their god status because that's what Hylia did in Skyward Sword during the Battle with Demise. And at some point, they either needed to or decided to eat their secret stones, which ultimately led them to become dragons. Minoru references knowledge of what happens when you eat one, but she doesn't say how she knows what happens. Maybe she witnessed what happens firsthand and could have given the dragons their new names in line with their original names. In my previous videos about possible DLC ideas, which please check them out if you haven't seen them yet, the comments were flooded with the idea of exploring these 3 dragons about who they were before they ultimately turned into dragons. How cool would it be to find out they were actually the 3 goddesses who created the Triforce? Nintendo has been known to put references of characters from past games in their newer ones, so the names of the dragons and color schemes could all be a reference, but it also leads to a cool theory about who these dragons really are. The Zonai still exist. References to the Zonai being extinct are everywhere, so this theory may be as dead as the Zonai, but hear me out. I have 2 talking points here, and the first one is the royal bloodline. Early on, Sonia mentions that she could sense a blood connection between Zelda, Rauru, and herself. This implies that the royal family has Zonai ancestry. This would mean that Zelda is part Zonai and carrying the Zonai bloodline, meaning the Zonai technically still exists, at least in some capacity. That said, there is no reference to Sonia and Rauru having a baby. We see both of them die in the previous cutscenes, and there was no references to a baby during the game, which means that they likely had one, but it just wasn't mentioned. Thank Hylia for that nanny contract they likely built to take care of it. An argument could be made that Sonia had a child with someone else beforehand, but it's implied that Rauru would be the father though, because Sonia mentions Raru's light power is in Zelda, which, side note, Zelda mentions in Breath of the Wild that her mother had the light power. The history implies that the princess or queen of Hyrule has the power passed down in the bloodline. It seems odd to me that Rauru, the male, the king, was the original holder of the light power, whereas it's traditionally known that the princess is the one with the power. I don't know, it's a little strange to me, but getting sidetracked, so back to the theory. There's likely some Zonai lineage within Zelda, so in a way, it means the Zonai still exist. But what about full-blooded Zonai? First, let's take a look at some references towards possible extinction. Let's again reference the time when Ganondorf met with Rauru. He mentions that the Zonai no longer grace this world other than Rauru and his sister. Rauru responds that if something were to happen to the both of them, Hyrule and peace would endure for generations, which implies that this would be the extinction of the Zonai in this world, but did all of the Zonai go to Hyrule? Some may have remained in the heavens, or maybe even gone to different areas like the Faron region. Throughout Breath of the Wild, there were hints of the Zonai in the Faron region. And then we have the Barbarian set, which was heavily linked to the Zonai. It is described as an ancient warlike tribe from the Faron region, and the set is adorned with traditional markings that bolster your fighting spirit. But does this really look like the Zonai? The Zonai that we see in Tears of the Kingdom are nothing barbaric like this Barbarian set indicates. So maybe a different group of Zonai went to the Faron region and evolved in a way that was more barbaric. These Zonai don't appear to be anywhere either. Maybe there was internal conflict amongst the Zonai, so maybe a group of them went to live on in the Faron region and had to do their best to survive. The big question within this part of the theory is, where are they now? It's possible that these Zonai could have been long forgotten and still living amongst everyone in Hyrule, but I still like to think that maybe there are some Zonai in the heavens that haven't made their way down to Hyrule, maybe just not yet. This one is the most wild theory yet, but now let me pass this off to you. Let me know your thoughts. Can you debunk any of these theories? What theories have you come up with after beating the game? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you're new here, slash that subscribe button for more content like this, or if you'd like to watch my live streams. Also, if you want to learn about when we could expect new DLC or top 10 DLC ideas for Tears of the Kingdom, click on one of the 2 videos on the screen. Also, a big shout out to Mossweaver for some fan art. I absolutely love these. And finally, please join our Discord using the link in the description. We're building a great community and it's been really fun interacting with everyone. Hope to see you on the next video and thanks for watching.